I think they could be communicated full stop. I don't know, if you want to know what's going on in the European Parliament, then right now it's a job for you to hunt that down. I think it needs to increase its visibility. I think it needs to increase its accountability too, because right now the European Commission, which makes the laws in the European Union, is completely unelected. I think that needs to change. I think the European Parliament needs to play a bigger role in creating legislation and in checking and balancing the decisions of the Commission. And I think that most of all, the EU needs to become more engaged with the citizens of Europe.
At the moment it's all very distant, like people feel it's somewhere in Strasbourg or in Brussels. It's not something really affecting your personal everyday life.
I think they could be clearer. You get lots of mixed messages from different people and different papers.
They could just be communicated at all, because there's hardly any information. Anything would be good.
Yes, because you tend not to hear much about what happens in The Hague. You tend to just hear little murmurings. You think if it's emphasised more by the media, you think that there would be a greater message, and so the European Union would actually become more useful.
Certainly myself and my friends know very little about the European Union and what's going on within it.
I think it needs to be seen as more exciting, more important, more relevant to students.
Just interact with people more and just let people know what's going on, know how it works. I wouldn't know anything about it if I wasn't doing politics A-level. So I'm guessing a lot of people my age who don't do politics have no idea what it's about.
I think it needs more force behind what it's saying. So, for example, more positive messages about it, and I think it could do with a bit of clarity about what it actually does and what the people do there.
Definitely, because at the moment it is very much you have to go out of your way to find out anything. I mean, when I get the letter through the post saying that I can vote, I didn't know what it was for, or so I had to look it up myself, find out what I was actually voting for. I mean, I know there's people at the moment who can vote, are going to vote, but don't even know that it's for the European Parliament. It's just picking out what their favourite party is, rather than knowing what they're actually voting towards.
Well, I think it would be good if they just told us what the hell they were doing to start off with. Europe isn't perfect, and I'm not saying that it is, but we don't know who these commissioners are, we don't know who our MEPs are, and frankly that's a bit of a shame. And it's just not very open, transparent or accountable.
Yes, most probably, because as a young person I don't take interest in politics because I just see it as really boring. And if it was a lot more out there, being a lot more young, fresh, communicating with people my age, not making it quite so black and white, and making us aware of how it does affect us as youngsters.
Absolutely. I think even those involved in the European Union get bored of the Lisbon Treaty, which has been going on for decades, get bored of the in-squabbling about, new countries joining, the Turkey discussion, 30 years ago that they asked to join. All these things are very long-term, and I think that makes it not necessarily exciting for some people. But the EU does a lot of good stuff, like I said, on climate change. The UK has the first legislative action on climate change. We could very much get that through the European Union and start an international cooperation on that. That's exciting to a lot of people. The good work that the EU does in funding projects. Here at the University of Plymouth, some of our buildings is funded by EU money. That is exciting to people using those buildings. So I think the message needs to be communicated in a more exciting way. People sometimes feel that the European Union is irrelevant to them in this country, and it isn't. It's relevant in some very important issues. Whilst there's always a conversation in Britain about our sovereignty and our role in the EU, which I think is good fun. Actually, I was at the Foreign Office last summer at Wilton Park, talking to some colleagues from France and in Europe, and actually our perspectives on the EU are very different. And there's always a bit of humour in there about Britain not really being part of the EU and only wanting it for the bits it wants. But actually, I think it's important, and if it's communicated in a better way to young people and every citizen in the UK, we can make great progress in the future.